Hello, my name is Themi and I'm head of frontend. And today I want to tell you a little bit about progressive web. So the agenda for today is that I'll go through giving you like a brief explanation about what is PWA. I'll talk about some of the features that you can do, add to home screen, push notification, offline. And I'll talk about what is the difference between this PWA and a normal single page application. And then I'll talk about the service worker and I'll come back to that and wrap it up with like a pros and cons and in the end give a conclusion. So progressive web app is it's like normal websites, but you're trying to use the newest features that is available by the browser. So with progressive web apps, the focus is very much on mobile websites. It's trying to make them be more and more similar to mobile apps. So Google, they have really been pushing a lot this whole PWA to make it able to have push notifications in websites and being able to store parts of the website offline, which is things that we already know from normal applications that we can download from the App Store or Play Store. And actually the funny thing about this PWA that Google, they have been pushing a lot, it's actually not a new thing. Apple back in 2007, which is more than 10 years ago, they actually introduced this concept about web apps and trying to make really impressive websites, web apps that can run with using native features and so on, which is something that they spoke about in a keynote. But then they kind of forgot about it, and they didn't really get back to it and really made it the new thing. And at that point, they didn't even have the App Store on their roadmap. So so it kind of makes sense that when they decided to push for making applications in the App Store and all that they didn't want to continue down the road of making web apps. But then, yeah, Google, they saw an opportunity. So one of the features is adding to the home screen. So this means that you can go into a website, and on Android it will have a banner that will say, do you want to add this website to your home screen? And when you press on it, it will open up it will look like any other app that you have installed, with an icon and a splash screen and all these things. And then when you click on it, it's actually going to open up, it's just a website, but it's going to open up in an isolated web browser where there'll be no navigation bar. So you won't be able to go back and forth, and you won't be able to have multiple tabs open, and you can't see the URL, all these things, but it's actually still a website. So that means that you can suddenly make websites that look more and more similar to native applications. The other thing that one of the other features that you can do is push notifications. So even though it's a website, normally with notifications, we only see this in native apps. But now you'll be able to get notifications that will say like, oh, you haven't used this app for some period of time, so open it up. Or maybe it's you don't want to download the Facebook app, so instead you just use the Facebook website as a PWA, and then you get notifications. And it means that you can skip the App Store and just get directly interaction with the users. But this is sadly not available on Apple yet, on iOS. Apple, they haven't been, even though they were the ones who started this, they have been very slow at adopting all these new features. So one of them is push notifications. So I think that they will definitely be pushing it more and more. So we will very soon see that this will be possible. The other thing that's really cool with PWAs is that you will be able to view a website when you are when you're out flying or you're in the tube, and it will be able to store some static content. So even, let's say, if we use the example again with Facebook, we could imagine that we would be able to browse through the the feed that we've already seen, and we can even make comments, and then they will just be queued up. So when you actually get out of the tube and you have connection again, then it would be able to push it up. And all this is, we already know this from native apps, so this is not something new. But with websites, this is not something we really were able to do before. So that's, I think this is one of the big powers of the PWAs. So I told you in the beginning that I wanted to compare this a little bit with SPA, with single page applications. So actually a PWA is just an SPA with superpowers, meaning that an SPA is just a normal website that most websites today are actually made as SPAs, which is just that you have some kind of framework that adds in the content dynamically, and it's not like in the old days where every time you clicked on a link, everything would refresh and you would wait for it. Now it all happens just like you know it from Facebook, and things, they change dynamically and all this. So when we are selling these PWAs to our clients, it's just like an add-on to the single page applications. It's yeah, that's basically what it is. But the reason why I made the arms a little bit smaller now is that, I mean, it is a single page application with superpowers, but we yet don't have like the full support on iOS and Android. So there's still a lot of features that they need to be introduced and tested a bit more before it will really become a powerful new framework. Yeah, so because of the no support, it means that even though we want to push this and like ask our clients to try to get to be cutting edge and have a PWA, it also means that we can't really promise them that it's going to work perfectly on all the different platforms, yet at least. So because Google have really been front runners for this, they've been pushing the Microsoft team a lot, and they actually right before the Google I/O, a conference that they held some weeks ago, they actually announced that Microsoft has finally supported the service worker, which is a big part of this PWA. So that's really interesting to see that we see all these other big companies, they're actually finally catching on. And the same with Safari. They also, in every single release, they keep adding more and more features. So there is no full support yet, but with time, I'm sure that we'll get there. So what is it that even makes it possible to have like a PWA and all this offline and push notifications and so on? It's all done by this little guy here called the service worker. You can think of it, and this is technical, you can think of this as a proxy that works as an intermediate between the client and the server. So whenever you visit a website right now, you can kind of think of it as like you're talking directly to it, and then it just serves you, whatever you're seeing. But now with the service worker, you will actually be communicating with the service worker that will then go to the server and get all the latest and newest information. So actually, to make this slide even more accurate, I could have taken a mini version of this and added it next to this one, because that's what makes it possible to all this offline support. So if this was cutted and you are in the tube, then you would just be talking with the service worker that would deliver you whatever you had downloaded the last time. Which also means that the next time you load the website, you don't need to go to the server and get the newest information. You can just get it right there, which means that performance suddenly also improves a lot because you can get the content almost instantly. And I got a good question from Vlad about but how, and is this just supported in every framework that you have? And actually, it doesn't have anything to do with the framework. This is just a built-in feature in the browser. So you could have just plain HTML with nothing special on it. And the only thing you really need is just some JavaScript that, with a very simple condition, you can check if the service worker is in the navigator. And I'm not going to go into detail about this, but basically, if this one is true, that the service worker is in the navigator, then done. Your browser has support for the service worker. But there's a lot of different things you can then do when you register your service worker to do different kind of caching, because sometimes you can have different strategies. Maybe you want to have the newest data every single time, but maybe the data is not, maybe your static content isn't super important to be updated every time. You can think of it like, you know, when you go to a site where it delivers you news articles, then you want to have the newest data all the time. You don't want to wait until you know, manually do a refresh. But on other sites, that's maybe, let's say, just showcasing something where everything is static, the text is static, the images are static, then why not have the service worker deliver this to you immediately instead? So in here, you can write, you know, a lot of code that handles all these different caching strategies and all these different things that you want to do. But you don't want to spend too much time doing all this, because you're probably going to do the same for most projects. So Google, they actually made a toolbox. So when you have a project, you can just install this toolbox, and then you can very easily just configure this, and when you initiate it, you just tell it what kind of strategy you want, and obviously it will just fall back to whatever they think is the most, you know, used option. And in many of the frameworks that we use here, like React and Angular and Vue, when you install these, they actually already come built in with the service worker. So you don't really need to do much. It already comes out of the box. So to wrap it up with some of the pros and cons, when this is more like a general website pro and con for the first item, which is about the design is uniform. It means that it's really good that you can build a website where it will look the same on iOS and Android or whatever, you know, computer you have. But it also means that you know, you're not really taking into consideration that each platform actually is a little bit different. Like with Android, you have the tab bar in the top, and in iOS, it's in the bottom, and so on. So there are different things here and there that you might want to consider when you're building, or maybe it's not important for you, and then, you know, building a website is a good option. Another pro is that you can skip the App Store. So if it's important to get out to the customer or out to the users really fast instead of going through the App Store, having a PWA is one great way to do that. It also means that you don't need to get all these, you know, validations from Apple, which we know can sometimes be very, you know, very annoying. Another pro is that the more and more this grows, it gets better and better support for all these different native features, such as geolocation and sensors and the camera and audio and Apple Pay. And then, as I said before, with the design, it supports both web and mobile. So in one solution with, in theory, one developer, you can get, you know, you can get a very, very far reach, which can be really great if that's what's important. And also, when it is a website, it's really easy to send out new releases and bug fixes, because you can do it immediately. You don't need for you know, to get it approved through the App Store. I know that with the Play Store, you can when you send out new releases, it's really fast. But if you consider like all the different platforms together, this is definitely, you know, the fastest one. So some of the cons is because, as I said earlier, it really lacks support for iOS. For instance, a big one is the push notifications. And also, a lot of people have mentioned that when you have a PWA, it's great that you have all this offline caching and all these things, but Apple, they have built into their operating system that if a specific app or PWA hasn't been used in a few weeks, then they just delete the cache, which means that the next time you open it up, you start from fresh. So sometimes that can be fine, but other times it can be really annoying if it's important that it keeps storing this information, which is something that actually just works perfectly on Android, because they store it in a file, kind of. So that means that it will never be deleted. And then there are also some issues around the whole like PWA. It opens up in like this full screen immersive thing. But what if you open an external link? Well, then it needs to go out of this PWA, and then you also kind of lose the state of where you were in the PWA. So there are a lot of like, corner cases that they still need to figure out how to solve. And then I think one of the most important ones as well is the background sync, that it's super unreliable. So if you build a native app, it's really easy to have different tasks running in the background. But when it comes to PWA, you can't really rely on it, because at least not in iOS, because iOS, they, as I said before, they can just release the memory for that app, because it doesn't have priority over other things. And then when you're actually designing the website, you need to remember that you need to have a back button, because like suddenly the navigation is removed both from the top and the bottom. So if you have a normal website and you're like, yeah, we'll just make it into a PWA, and you haven't thought about that it needs back buttons, then after the user has clicked a little bit around, then they can't really get back. They need to force quit the app and then do it from the beginning again, which obviously is a really bad user experience. And so the conclusion on this is that it will be really nice if we can get rid of this. There's no internet connection. So we'll of course miss that in Chrome we can play with this little dinosaur and there's no internet. But it's still, we can't rely 100% on it yet, because there isn't the full support from iOS. We can make our websites ready and build them so they should be able to support it. But it still takes a little bit of time before we will be fully there where the PWA will be a good substitute for native apps. Because another really important point is you will never really get this interaction that you have when you use a native app, with like the transitions and the animations and all this very fluent interaction. I mean, when it's a website and it's easy to see. Yes, so that was all. Any questions?
You say like bug fixes immediately. Does the user still need to go and re-download or
no,
put it back on the home?
Not necessarily, because with the service worker it will check and see that there's a new version, and then it will refresh it.
Is there a way that you can disable that on your mobile though?
Yes, you can configure your service worker in multiple different ways. It could be that it automatically just always pulls the newest version, but you can also trigger it to say that it comes with like a small pop-up or like a question where it says, do you want to have the newest version? Because maybe you don't want to force the newest version on the user for some reason, and then they can do it themselves. Let's say if the user is currently, if it's an email website and they're writing a long email, and then there's a new update and you refresh, then obviously whatever you're writing would be gone. So in those cases it could be good to like prompt the user instead of just forcing it to update.
And sorry, just with iOS, do you think it's likely that they will try and open up to support it, because it does kind of go against them obviously with the App Store, and it does mean you can get around some things that they will never push through with anything that's tobacco related or anything that seems kind of...
I mean, they have already supported a lot. Like you can already add it to your home screen, and you can already get a lot of the features. The only thing that's really lacking is the push notification, and then making a lot of the other features more stable. I mean, I think they will do it, but maybe they won't do it as fast as they should, because they don't want to. They want people to go to the App Store.
But is there, because I know you have to have Safari, right?
Yes.
Is there a reason why you can't use it though on if you have an iPhone and Chrome?
Yeah, so Chrome is actually just a shell that uses Safari underneath. So it's and actually it's using an old version of Safari. So that means that it will probably even take longer time before the Chrome browser will be able to use this new PWA features.
Who do you think is killing it in the PWA game? Like what brands are leading?
Alibaba, they are really pushing this a lot. And actually, if you go to Google's website, they have a section about PWA where they also actually they list a lot of their the good cases with like people who moved over to PWAs. And yeah, Alibaba is one of the cases, and they explain like how their user retention, I think it's called, right, is increased a lot because they moved over to PWA, because suddenly performance has improved a lot. The users, they almost instantly will see content. And we already know that from a lot of other surveys that has been done around websites, that if a user needs to wait more than 5 seconds for content to load, they'll just drop it. They won't use it. But suddenly you can get a completely different performance by using the PWA.
And if a client was interested in kind of exploring PWAs, obviously it's case dependent, but let's say that there's a really good case study for a particular client. Do you think PWAs are at the point where they should invest in it solely, or do you think they should have website, native apps, and trial PWAs on the side?
Yeah.
It's still at that level?
Yeah. It's not, I mean, it can do many of the same things as you could with native, but it really depends on the case. It really depends on the project. Like, what is it that you want? If it's very simple and it's just showing news, then, I mean, maybe there isn't even a point to have a native app. Maybe you could just go with the PWA. But it's always a difficult question, because native apps, they also send like out a different kind of signal. It's I'm professional, so I have an app in the App Store. If you only have a website, it's kind of like, why don't you also have an app? Because usually with native apps, you would add like some more features that makes it, so the website and the app isn't just a one-to-one.
Last question for me: are there geographical differences in uptake? So it's like the East leading the West on PWAs, or is?
I actually don't know.
If Alibaba doing something, it's going to be that side, I imagine.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been interesting to see where the uptake is great.
Yeah, but I think most new websites, because when you start a new project in React or in Angular, it comes with it shipped in. So I mean, I think most websites, all the new websites that are going to be made or have been made within the last half of 1 year, they probably already support it without even knowing it, because you actually need to go in and disable it if you don't want it. So that's also, I think, a good way to kind of push the browsers to kind of like, step up and get this to be supported. Because I mean, it is definitely the future, and you want to push the browser. You want it to be better and better performing, because we get more and more. We want it to be faster and faster and faster.
Cool.